Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Trust everybody had a nice lunch. Again, I'll just repeat, we are here for consideration of Bill number 80, the Construction Industry Labor Relations Amendment Act 2009. Presenters that have brought along submissions are giving them to the clerk, so they will be tabled with the committee and become public information on the website at legislatively.sk.ca/committees/. Welcome to the presenters. Upon official introduction, I would ask them just to introduce themselves specifically for the committee knowledge and for the information of Hansard. And just to let you know, the process we're going is our loosely 30-minute presentation, 20 minutes for presentation, and allowing as much time as possible for questions afterwards, right around the 10-minute mark. And I will give you about a 5-minute warning if it's needed to let you know that we're getting to the end of the 20 minutes. So thank you very much, and welcome to the International Union of Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers. Let's just go ahead with your presentation, please.
Local 1 Saskatchewan, who I think is actually the more important party here today.
Thank you.
My name is Graham Aitken, A-I-T-K-E-N, and my colleague,
Clarence Medernach.
Thank you for the opportunity to appear. Before we get started with anything, I do want to thank publicly and personally Ms. Joelle Perez, the committee researcher, for her professionalism, guidance, and understanding throughout the process when we were getting our submissions in. It was a little bit unique to us, and she was extremely helpful. And I don't envy your role, Ms. Perez, coming up either, because of all the research that I think is going to have to be done to get through all of our positions to the actual facts of the matter. So once again, thank you. To the committee, you have our written submissions, and trust that you will have read them or you will read them. And so we're not going to spend a lot of time. We're not going to recite them to you. I don't think that that's necessary. Clearly, all of you are intelligent individuals who can read. So I'm not going to bother with that. Mr. Medernach and I will give you brief bios on ourselves so that you can get an understanding as to why we're committed to the province of Saskatchewan and why we have a vested interest in this potential province-altering legislation in our view. Following the bios and a quick bit of background on our organizations, we plan to address some of the issues raised by other witnesses, provide our what we believe is unique perspective as a small trade union that represents very specific craft workers, and then hopefully engage with the committee as others have so that we can try to come to an understanding as to why this is on the table, because quite frankly we're confused. Clarence, do you want to?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm Clarence Medernach, President, Secretary, Treasurer, Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers, Local 1 Saskatchewan. Born and raised in Saskatchewan, other than for a few years when I traveled to other provinces to work. I spent my life here and raised my family here. I started my membership in the local as an apprentice in 1975, and I continued in the trade as an apprentice, onto bricklayer, foreman, and up to 1994 as a bricklayer, periodically still working on the tools after 1994. And in 1994, I became the principal officer of the local union and like I said, continue working at the trade. I'm now full-time principal officer of the local and we are possibly the oldest union in Saskatchewan. Our history reaches back over 100 years, August 9, 1906. In March 2007, we celebrated our anniversary with industry partners, contractors, architects, engineers, owners, and one of your colleagues, Ken Kravetz, actually attended it, and if you talk to them, I think you'll find out he had a very good time. Through the years in office, the local has been more involved in recruitment of workers and training. I worked with the Sask Apprenticeship to get the bricklaying apprenticeship course back on track. We partnered with the First Nations Employment Center to have the local better represent the demographics of the province. The local of approximately 200 members funded $50,000 for this course. In October 2007, the local partnership with International Masonry Institute to address any possible skill shortages that we may face. International Masonry Institute is a partnership between our signatory contractors in North America and our international union to deliver training, promotion, and technical assistance to the industry partners. We have since bought a facility for training, partnered with Regina Trades and Skills Center, and are working with Regina Trades and Skills Centers on more training this fall. In addition, we are working with school boards to introduce masonry to the schools Career Spotlight program, which we hope will lead to more opportunities for Saskatchewan youth. Our programs and partnerships are totally supported with funding by the membership of the local. Thank you.
I'm an electrician by trade. Began my apprenticeship in Hamilton, Ontario, and moved on to become an organizer for the IBEW in Southern Ontario. And I'm a little tentative to tell you the next part, giving Ms. Schreimer's comments with the last witness, but I then went on to law school, was in private practice, and now I'm assistant to the president for the International Union of Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers. My travels take me all over Canada, but I can honestly say I have a real love for this province. The people here are honest. The businesses, whether I'm speaking of construction businesses or people, they're honest, they're welcoming, and I truly love coming to this province. So I've taken great pride and fully dedicated myself to finding made-in-Saskatchewan solutions for the Saskatchewan problems we find in the masonry industry here. It's a crucial element in my performance of my duties. Solutions can be found here, in our respectful view, without legislative intervention. Solutions can be found here for the problems faced here. And we implore, we ask, we plead, don't gamble on legislation. Let's try and find the solutions here. I first want to deal with the alleged infringement on freedom of choice argument that's been bandied about over the last day and a half. With all due respect to the witnesses and the discussions, everything that's been discussed on this is absent a grounding in law and fact. As we referenced in our written submissions, and it's at the early end of our submissions, at the front end, the suggestion that this type of freedom is or should be unfettered is simply incorrect. The Canadian Charter of Rights, which someone quoted earlier today and I think was brought out yesterday, while providing protection for freedoms, and that's for government actions, of course, also explicitly recognizes that those freedoms are subject to interference when they're balanced against the interests of larger society. We've dealt with this, as I said, and in our view, this freedom of choice that seems to be suggested to this committee is absolute, must be considered in light of the construction industry in Saskatchewan as a whole, and as a result of its importance to Saskatchewan as a province, it must be balanced against the province and the interests of the province. It's not an absolute freedom. And I think much of this arises from the BC healthcare case, and I would urge you to read that case and suggest to you quite strongly there's nothing in BC healthcare that would suggest that the current CILRA is ultra vires the Constitution. Coincidentally, and some people might not suggest it's such a coincidence, CEP has filed an application before the Saskatchewan Labour Relations Board claiming that CILRA is ultra vires the Constitution. It's interesting, and we respectfully submit, quite revealing, that this application was filed with respect to a group of employees who were working for an employer with a rich history, a very rich history, of shirking its contractual and legislative responsibilities. In fact, this employer purchased a signatory contractor of ours in British Columbia. At least we believe they purchased them. We're still trying to wade through all of that. We had a collective agreement with this contractor. After the alleged sale, we were informed that they had decided they're no longer going to bargain with us, contract aside, and they're going to form or had formed a bargaining relationship with CEP. Not surprisingly then, CEP and this very employer, after doing similar things in Alberta also, are before you or before your board in Saskatchewan trying to upset a well-established labor relations system. Of course, in the interest of ensuring that we're not just putting forth a position, if this committee so desires, we are quite willing to provide you with all of our legal documents and paperwork to prove the comments I've just made with respect to CEP in British Columbia and in Alberta. So here we have two parties, this contractor and CEP, with a history of upsetting relationships in the construction industry in Western Canada. And we ask this committee, are these the actors or the types of actors for whom the government proposes amending the labor relations legislation?